Do you ever feel like the bar exam is a natural disaster, kind of like a hurricane? Well, we've just been through a hurricane, and I want to share some thoughts in this message about what hurricanes and the bar exam might have in common. I'm Jackson Mumey, the owner and founder of Celebration Bar Review, and for the past 25 years, I've helped thousands of bar takers, people just like you, to make their next bar exam the last bar exam. If you want to know more about how we do that, check out the links on this page after this video. Well, hey everybody, I'm coming to you today from outside Orlando, Florida, and at about 1:30 a.m. on Monday, the eye wall of Hurricane Irma passed right over our heads. And while we've been through a lot of hurricanes in our lifetime, including but not limited to Andrew, Charlie, Katrina, Ivan, and too many to remember, this was certainly a different experience. And as I'm recording today, there are still about 7 million people without power in the state of Florida. There's obvious widespread devastation, and we are feeling very blessed and very grateful that we never lost power here, nor did we have any significant damage. And the purpose of this video is not to talk about the hurricane per se. Plenty is being said there. But obviously, for me, almost everything relates back to the bar exam. And so what I wanted to do today was to take a few minutes and talk about some things that struck me, I guess, while I was sitting there waiting in the middle of the night for this storm to hit us. I thought about how hurricanes are like the bar exam, and I think there's some lessons to be learned. And so if you'll permit me this indulgence, I'd like to talk about some thoughts that I had about 4 specific ways that hurricanes seem like bar exams, and how you might be able to deal with the bar exam side of it. I have no real advice about hurricanes except to stay safe. Well, the first thing that I want to point out is that preparation is a key when it comes to hurricanes, and it's also a key when it comes to the bar exam. You know, with Irma, we had a lot of time to prepare. We knew that this storm was out in the Atlantic for a long time. There were many, many days in which the track was still uncertain, the cone of uncertainty, I guess it's called. And there were warnings from all sorts of government officials that it was time to evacuate and you needed to prepare and get your materials ready. That meant going to the store and getting stocked up on all your supplies and so on, preparing your home, preparing your property, doing what you had to do, getting gas in your car. Those are all steps of preparation. It seems to me that the same is true with the bar exam. Look, today, as you're listening to this, you know there's a bar exam coming up, whether it's the February exam or the July exam. It's coming up. It's going to be here. It's out there. You can see it in the distance. Now, one of the real problems with hurricanes is that a lot of people procrastinate. They wait until the last minute. And if you've ever been through a storm like that, you know that at the last minute there's no supplies on the shelves, the lines for gas are long, and everything turns into a real hassle, at least, if not just complete and utter frustration. I see the same thing happen in the bar exam a lot. The people that start early, that start doing their work early, are almost always better off than the people that wait until the last moment. Now, I know that there are those of you that think, well, I don't need a lot of time. I'm just going to cram it all in and it'll all work for me. I got to tell you, you're kind of like the hurricane shopper that shows up at the store the night before the storm, wondering why there's no bread or milk or water on the shelves. It's just not there. In the same way, a lot of bar takers wait too long. They think that they should be studying in a 60-day or less window. That's a mistake. Our experience, now proven out over more than 20 years, is that the sweet spot for study is about 250 to 300 hours of total study time spread over a 4 to 6 month period. So, as I'm talking to you today, we're within that window for the next exam. You should be preparing for the next bar exam. And if you're less than 4 months to the next bar exam, what it means is you're going to have to stock up a lot faster. You're going to have to work harder and spend more hours. And the truth is, very few people don't know they're going to take a bar exam until they're less than 4 months away from it. The biggest exception to that would be the people that have failed an exam and simply don't get the results until too late. And that's a slightly different circumstance because you already have a base, you already have a stockpile of some information. But if you're taking the bar exam for the first time in a jurisdiction, or you've sat out a while and you're ready to take it, you know what that date is. And the most important thing you can do is to start early. I cannot emphasize this enough. When we look at the people who pass versus the people who are not successful, there is a direct correlation between when someone started and the pass rates. I'm not saying you can't pass if you start late, but I'm saying you have a better chance of passing if you start early. Are you excited about it? Are you thrilled about it? Are you jumping for joy about it? Probably not, but you need to do it. And if you've been putting it off, saying, well, I'm going to wait until X. Listen, there's no real reason to wait until X. None at all. We've removed every barrier, including price, to people starting early. And so if you're one of those people that thinks you're going to do it in a 6-week period, let me just remind you that the big box bar reviews, the people that prepare 90 to 95% of bar takers in America, have a pass rate that's well under 50% across America. There's nothing to recommend that system of study, and you shouldn't be doing it. So step number 1 is preparation. You see the storm coming, you see the bar exam coming, get prepared. Do it now. Step number 2, or observation number 2, if you will, is that hurricanes are unpredictable. They change paths. Boy, this was true with Irma. We thought at first it was going to Miami, and that looked pretty awful. And for us in Central Florida, we said, well, we're probably going to get hit with the storm coming up the East Coast. Then the storm started to move west, and it looked like it was going to hit Naples and Tampa. And we thought, okay, that's actually not too bad for us. We're still going to get some wind and damage, but not too bad. And then about 3 hours before the eye wall passed, we started to hear on local TV and radio that the storm had actually wobbled a little bit to the east and was headed right for Orlando. In fact, it was headed right for Celebration, and it passed literally over the town center in Celebration. You know, storms are unpredictable. They change paths. You think you know where they're going, but they don't. Well, what's the analog in the bar exam? I would say right now that the atmosphere around the bar exam is also highly unpredictable. You need to be flexible. A lot is changing. If you're a California bar taker, the cut score, the passing score that you need, is now under review. It could be 1440, it could be 1360, it could be somewhere in between. It might not change at all. And no one really knows. And you have to be flexible about that. New subjects are being changed and added. States are switching from their state exam to the uniform bar exam, and you have to be flexible. One of the troubling signs I see for bar takers is that they become rigid and locked in. I saw a lot of this when New York went from their state exam to the UBE, and I had students insisting that they still needed to study civil CPLR. That's a New York Civil Code pleading system. It's not tested on the UBE, but people were not flexible. They weren't willing to adjust and recognize that they were looking at a different test. In Florida, in the bar exam, we've seen the examiners go from testing a certain range of subjects on the essays to suddenly testing subjects that they have never tested before on the essays. You had to be flexible. You had to be ready for it, not because you'd over-prepped, but because you understood that the examiners could go lots of different directions. I actually tend to think of bar examiners as being a lot like hurricanes, even before this storm. They're wildly unpredictable, they wobble, and you don't know what they're going to do. So what's the answer? Well, you try to prepare. That was step 1. And then you remain flexible. You remain alert. What's changing? What's happening? You know, we try to keep our students up to date with previews and updates and new information. I wish that everyone in our industry did that. But the truth is, a lot of the big box bar reviews are so big and cumbersome, and they're really kind of like the Titanic. They only go one direction. And if there's an iceberg in their way, well, too bad for the people on board deck. And I think that's a disservice to those folks. So we're more nimble. We're able to adjust on the fly and say, hey, look, here's a change. Here's something you want to look at. We were able to adjust to most of the changes that were out there in this uncertain environment for the bar exam. And when you're thinking about the bar, you want to make sure you've got a bar review provider that actually knows what's going on. If you're working with somebody that's just teaching the bar as a side hustle, I can pretty much assure you that they have no idea what's really happening. And there's so much misinformation. There's so much bad information out there. People pretending to know something about the bar exam who have no credentials, no ability, no real insight as to what's going on. Be informed about what's happening, but be flexible. Recognize that plans may change. You may have to do some things differently than what you thought you were going to have to do before. When we offer our webinar, How to Make the Next Bar Exam Your Last Bar Exam, I talk about the need to remain flexible and open to new ideas, because I know that if you really get to the point where you are flexible and open, you're going to grow and learn so much more effectively than if you're rigidly doing the same old things that in many cases didn't work for other people and didn't work for you perhaps. And so this idea of having the flexibility to change path makes a huge difference in the ultimate results. The third observation I want to make about hurricanes is that once you've got a plan in place, you've done the preparation, and you know the storm is unpredictable, you need to follow your plan. You need to follow directions. Don't make last-minute changes. Don't make changes at the very last moment. You know, one of the concerns, one of the things that the governors in Florida or the governor in Texas with Harvey were saying at the end was, if you're in place and you're sheltered in place, do not leave at this last moment. Don't go out when the storm has already hit. Don't make a last-minute change. Here is the cutoff point. You know, that's good advice, because that's how people get hurt or killed. They make last-minute panic decisions and they run out into the storm, and that's when bad things start to happen. I think the analog here for the bar exam is that you've got a roadmap and a path to follow, certainly if you're in our course. We have a syllabus that lays out step by step everything you have to do. You need to follow that syllabus. Don't cherry pick it. Don't decide you're going to do one subject and then swing around to another subject and do them out of order and pick them based on what you think is most important. The truth is, most bar takers don't know what's most important, and they don't understand why the organization is set up as it is in the first place, at least in our course. And so what happens is when people start to panic, when they start grabbing for anything, bad things happen. Here's another way you can see it. You'll have someone who's studying, going along, they're working fine, and then suddenly they get it into their head that what they have to do at the last minute is memorize. Now, in our course, we don't teach memorization. We teach a different style of learning. But suddenly I have people saying, well, which flashcard should I get? Or should I go get that, Adapt-A-Bar course? Or should I go get this? Or should I go get this or do that? The answer is no, don't do that. Stay the course. Do what we know works. Don't go running out there and suddenly panicked, scrambling, trying to pick up everything you can pick up. This is really a challenge, particularly in the last 30 days before the bar exam. We recognize that the stress grows exponentially at that point. And if you've listened to my podcasts or watched my videos or you're in our course, you know how much we counsel staying calm and focused and the tools that we offer to help you with that. But the reality is that some people just freak out. Look, you don't want to freak out at the end before the bar exam. That is not helpful, it's not productive, and it doesn't improve your score. And yet every exam people do it. In the same way, we saw people freaking out before the storm here. When they realized that the storm track was changing, suddenly they were saying, well, should I flee? Well, no, not with 3 hours before the storm. Of course not. It would be a catastrophic mistake to make. And I think bar takers make those same kinds of analogously catastrophic mistakes at the end. They freak out when they shouldn't. You've got a plan, now you've got to ride it out. If you're sheltered in place before the storm, stay in place. If you evacuated, stay where you evacuated. Whatever approach you're taking to the bar, stay with it. Look, if you chose to use IRAC writing and memorization, that's a bad choice, but that's the choice you made. Stay with it. Don't switch 30 days before the exam. By the same token, if you're in our course and you're doing things that I think make a lot more sense in terms of educational structure and certainly in terms of results, stay with that plan. Don't switch at the last minute and try and do something different. Avoiding that panic makes a big difference, and it certainly helps your sleep and your rest and your focus on bar exam days itself. The fourth observation I want to make about hurricanes and why they're like bar exams is that when the exam is done, or when the hurricane is over, you need to make a recovery and an assessment, or an assessment and then a recovery perhaps would be more appropriate. You know, when the hurricane passed over us, when Irma passed over us in the middle of the night, we couldn't tell much of anything. When we got up the next morning, we saw that there was a huge oak tree in our front yard that was now tilted at a 45-degree angle, fortunately towards the street and not towards us. It was a massive, and it was upturned by the storm. There's no way we could have made that assessment in the middle of the night, and there was nothing we could do about it in the middle of the night. But by the next day, when we could see it, then we were able to call it in and report it, and they could cut down the branches and make it at least a little bit safe. But if you're wanting to know, we have the leaning tree of celebration right here in our front yard. The point is that we had to provide a little bit of time. We had to give ourselves the ability to recover and assess, and we had to be patient. It's going to take a long time to recover from these big storms. In Harvey, in Texas, Irma here in Florida, these things are going to take time to get through. That's the reality of a storm. We certainly learned that in Katrina in the Gulf Coast. How does that apply to the bar exam? Well, when people come out of the bar exam, they are really many times not unlike storm victims. There's a sense of shock. There's post-traumatic stress disorder, I think, for a lot of folks, and it's easy to overreact. It's easy to think of small things as being major challenges or major crises. I've had students who've contacted me to say, what issues were on all of the questions in the bar exam? I don't know. I don't issue spot. It's not the way that we approach it. But even if we did, what difference would it make? The exam is over. Get on with it. I mean, move on and don't linger there. I've done some videos about how to wait for your bar exam results and finding some peace during that time, and we'll link to those. But I think it's important to understand that when the test is over, it's over. And the truth is that for most people, the exam will look better to you with a little bit of time that's elapsed. In those first few days and weeks right after the test, it is hard to get an accurate assessment of what you've just been through. The bar exam is brutal. It is very difficult in every jurisdiction, and there's simply no way to know with certainty when the exam is over how you've done. Now, as I'm recording today, we're in the beginning of the exam results season, and so people are now beginning to find out what their results are. I would say the same thing is true right now. If your results came out and you did not pass, do not panic at this moment. The emotional reaction is normal and real. You're going to be angry. You're going to be frustrated. You're going to be discouraged. You're going to feel like you've been let down by just about everybody in the system. You're going to feel like it's not fair. Those are all normal reactions. I would say they're just as normal as the way people without power and water and utilities are feeling after these storms. But you have to give yourself a little bit of time to absorb the impact and then assess the damage. If you didn't pass the exam, this is the time to think about what happened and why. If you took a big box bar review and you memorized and recited, you need to ask yourself, is that the most effective way to study? And then decide where to go from there. If you took a different approach and you weren't successful, I think you have to ask, what happened? Why wasn't I successful? What didn't work? Did I follow the directions I was given? Did I write in the style that I was taught? Did I give myself enough time to study? Was I focused in the work that I was doing? You need some time to make that assessment. You cannot make it in the first 24 or 48 hours after your results come out. And I want to strongly encourage those of you that are getting your bar results now or will get them in the near future to give yourself enough time to do the assessment and then recover based on what you hear. And of course, if you passed, well, enjoy, celebrate. That's why we call ourselves Celebration Bar Review. And it's great. And we're beginning to get results, and they look like lots of people are celebrating. And we're excited about that. But also recognize that in the celebration, there will be many people who will not be able to celebrate. And so I would warn all of you who are successful to be kind, humble, and gentle as members of our profession. One of the things I find most troubling is the report and survey out of California that says existing members of the Cal Bar are saying don't lower the passing score because if I had to do it, everybody else has to do it. That's really a disappointing reaction, I think, to have. And I hope that the people that do pass will be more compassionate, more gentle, kinder to other members coming into the bar. At least that's our hope from this perspective. I guess what I'm really trying to say about all of this is don't overreact either up or down. If you passed, it is great news. Celebrate it, enjoy it, and then move on. If you failed, don't become despondent. Simply take a moment, take a day or two, adjust, think about it, and then move forward. You know, all around me today as I'm looking at the recovery that's going on in my own community as well as around the state, as well as in Texas, it is a long-term process. And studying and recovering from bar results that are unfavorable is also a long-term process. It will not get fixed overnight. It will not get fixed by making a snap decision about anything. Give yourself enough time to breathe, respond to it, and come back and look at it later. Well, those are the four things that jumped out at me. Preparation, the unpredictability, following the plan, and then doing an assessment and recovery. These are real-life experiences with hurricanes. They matter far more than the bar exam, but I know that for those of you taking the bar, it's a huge moment in your life, and I hope that the experience of these other huge moments that happen in the lives of many people can be instructive to you. If you'd like to know more about how we can help you, there's a link here on this page. I'd be glad to talk with you and to assist you. And for all of you who are recovering or trying to recover from the effects and aftermaths of these storms, our thoughts and prayers are with you. We know how very difficult this can be, and we wish you all the best. Thanks very much for being with me today.